Part 4. Trust Your Stuff. Chapter 1. Be decisive. A wrong decision is generally less disastrous than indecision. Bernard Langer. If there is doubt in your mind, how can your muscles know what they are expected to do? Harvey Penick. On the day of the final round of the 2000 Masters Tournament, Vijay Sin received a nice surprise, the kind of surprise that touches a father's heart, the kind that brings a smile. Sin's 9-year-old son, Cass, had pinned a note to his dad's golf bag. The message read, "Papa, trust your swing." Not wanting to disappoint the boy who trusted in his father, the leader did as requested, playing steadily and confidently from the first hole to the last. The man from Fiji, whose first name means victory, won the Masters by 3 shots. Afterward, he appeared with Cass at the champion's press conference wearing the green jacket and a triumphant smile. "That's what I tried to do," Sin said, reflecting on his round. He looked at his son. "Trust my swing." Successful athletes trust their talent. They are committed to every swing, every stroke, every shot, and every pitch. When asked for golfing tips, I tell friends that the best advice I can give is that it's better to be decisive than right. The late Harvey Penick, one of the game's most revered instructors, said, "If you are indecisive, if you have doubts, if there is a lack of commitment in your mind, how is your body going to know what to do?" We all have seen what can happen to the most talented athletes under pressure. They sometimes become tentative and indecisive. They don't trust their stuff. One such scene played out during a sudden death playoff at the Masters in 1990. It was almost a gimme. Only 2 feet stood between Scott Hodge's ball and victory. He lined up the winning putt from one direction. He walked behind the hole and gave it a second look. Hodge came back, knelt behind his ball, and studied the line a while longer. Then he took another look. It was 24 inches, tops, almost straight in. But Hodge looked like Pool Shark, Minnesota. Fats circling a green felted billiard table, chalking his cue, and reading every angle before making a 4-bank trick shot. It was growing late. Instead of unconsciously speeding up, as some athletes do under pressure, Hodge slowed down. Chichi Rodriguez said, "Take less time to read the scorecard and more time to read the hole." Good advice. But Hodge read the hole as if it were war and peace. Finally, the golfer stepped up to his ball, settled into a stance, eyes flicked anxiously from ball to hole to ball, back and forth. Watching the TV, Ben Crenshaw, conscious of the passing time Hodge had spent, 55 seconds and counting, was on the edge of a scream. "Geez," Ben said, "hit it." At last, Hodge drew back the putter blade. There was more prayer than conviction in his stroke. Click. The ball slid 3 feet past the hole. Crenshaw flinched and shook his head. "Like my dad says," Ben said in disbelief. Good God Almighty. Hodge went on to lose to Nick Faldo, who birdied the second playoff hole. Doubts cause intellectual confusion. Doubts can be paralyzing. It is said that a person who doubts himself is like a man who would enlist in the ranks of his enemies and bear arms against himself. Confidence and trust are essential in every sport. Hall of Fame pitcher Sandy Koufax of the Dodgers said it's better to throw a poor pitch wholeheartedly than to throw the so-called right pitch with a feeling of doubt. You got to feel sure you're doing the right thing, sure that you want to throw the pitch that you're going to throw. Today's Dodgers ace Kevin Brown says that if you make a bad pitch aggressively, you have a much better chance of getting away with it. The habits of success are forged in practice. In practice, you learn the art of concentration. You can be out there in the middle of a tough match pleading to yourself, Concentrate, concentrate, and it won't happen for you, said Martina Navratilova, the former tennis star. Concentration is born on the practice court. You must mentally treat your practice sessions and matches, concentrating on every ball you hit. In practice, you learn to train your brain as well as your body. Sam Snead said practice time is when you put your brain into your muscles. The conscious practice of routines leads to the unconscious habits of success. A routine is something you do regularly that you control and has purpose. Before Nomar Garciparra steps into the batter's box, he begins a series of fidgety gestures, repeatedly tugging on his batting gloves. Taking his stance, he taps one toe and then the other against the dirt. They're the same quirky habits he performs in practice. Every hitter has his own routine. Routines are comforting mechanisms, triggering mechanisms. They differ, however, from rituals based upon superstition, like Wade Boggs' habit of eating chicken at 3 p.m. before every night game. In golf, a pre-shot routine begins with the player standing behind the ball, looking at the target. In a thinking mode, it's time to analyze and develop a strategy. Ask yourself questions. Where's the pin? What direction is the wind blowing? Is it time to mentally shape the shot, as Jack Nicklaus described? Once you've decided how you're going to play the shot and you step up to the ball, it's time to get your head out of the way so your body can perform. Turn off the analytical mind, switch from thinking mode to trusting mode. You can't be thinking and swinging at the same time. Ask yourself this: are you better than your stuff? No? So just trust it. Chapter 2. White Moments. Each time I step on the basketball court, I never know what will happen. I live for the moment. I play for the moment. Michael Jordan. When I'm in my groove, there is no thinking. Everything just happens. Ozzie Smith. Ben Crenshaw was surprised as anyone when he broke a par in the opening round of the Masters in 1995. A day earlier, he had been in Austin, Texas, attending the funeral of Harvey Penick, his 90-year-old teacher and lifelong friend. Harvey gave Crenshaw his first golf club when Ben was 6. Over the years, Harvey always was there, offering his people encouragement and simple teachings that expressed a philosophy that went deeper than mechanical advice. After buying his dear friend, Crenshaw flew to Augusta National. When he arrived, he felt tired, hollow, washed out. He was emotionally spent. "I don't know what to expect," Crenshaw said before teeing off. 4 days later, what you never imagined would happen did. At age 43, 11 years after his last win at Masters, Ben won again. With the final putt fell, Crenshaw bent over and hid his face in his hands and wept. "I still reflect on it so much," Crenshaw said 5 years later. "So many unexplained things happened that week. I hadn't played worth a darn in a good while, but I gained a lot of confidence the first day and it kept going. I was very relaxed but determined. In many respects, I felt like I was a kid again. I played by instinct the whole week. I was as calm as I ever been." Many people who play sports long enough or work at their craft hard enough experience those magical moments where their training and trust in themselves come together in perfect harmony. Their performance flows smoothly, effortlessly, and almost unconsciously. This heightened level of performance, Michael Jordan described it as the reward for years of hard work and preparation, is unexplainable. Sometimes, these special moments seem to happen as if by grace. Perhaps you have experienced a competition when everything falls into place, like tumblers in a wall safe. You feel like pitching yourself to verify you're not dreaming. pinching yourself to verify you're not dreaming. At times, you want to break out laughing while telling yourself, "This is unreal. I'm not this good." But at the moment and place, you are. All great athletes know the feeling. They use different words to describe it. They're on autopilot, they're tuned in total control, in the groove, locked. Japanese baseball players have their own word for it, mushin. Loosely translated, it means no mind. Tennis star Arthur Ashe called it playing in the zone. The zone is the essence of the athletic experience, said former NFL player Dave Magesi. And those moments of going beyond yourself are the underlying allure of sports. The moments are rare and illuminating. Yuri Vlasov, the former world champion Russian weightlifter, wrote verse when he wasn't training. His illustrative description of the zone experience reflects the soul of a poet. At the peak of tremendous and victorious effort, Vlasov said, "While the blood is pounding in your head, all suddenly becomes quiet within you. Everything seems clear and wider than before, as if great spotlights had been turned on. At that moment, you have the conviction that you contain all the power in the world, that you are capable of everything, that you have wings. There is no more precious moment in life than this, the white moment, and you will work very hard for years just to taste it again." Athletes in every sport occasionally experience being in the zone. Former NBA player Brian Scott said, "All you can hear is the little voice inside you telling you, shoot, every time you touch the ball, because you know it's going in." As a Phoenix Sun, Charles Barkley scored 56 points in a playoff game against the Golden State Warriors. In the first quarter, he made 11 field goals in a row. Layups, jump shots, three-pointers from all over the court. No misses, as one shot fell, then another, then another. His teammates along the bench were on their feet, grinning and shaking their heads. Joe Clean made a circle with his arms, as if to indicate the rim was the size of a hula hoop. After Barkley drilled in a flat trajectory jumper over a defender, the Sun star turned to the Warriors cheerleaders huddled under one basket. His grin said, "You ain't stopping me, not tonight." The late Jim Catfish Hunter accomplished the ultimate as a pitcher with the Oakland A's. "I wasn't worried about a perfect game going into the ninth," he recalled. "It was like a dream. I was going on like I was in a daze. I never thought about it the whole time. If I thought about it, I wouldn't have thrown a perfect game. I know I wouldn't have." When you're in the zone, you have switched from training mode to a trusting mode. You're not fighting yourself. You're not afraid of anything. You're living in the moment in a special place and time. As a certified hypnotist, I see similarities between people who are in trance and those in a performance zone. At age 13, Tiger Woods worked with sports psychologists who taught him how to use hypnosis to block out the conscious mind and to strengthen his resolve and focus. Skills in hypnosis helped the young golfer to such a deep level of concentration that he couldn't remember making certain shots. Tiger told the New York Times magazines, "You ever go up to a tee and say, 'Don't hit it left, don't hit it right'? That's your conscious mind. Your body knows how to play golf. I've trained it to do that. It's just a matter of keeping my conscious mind out of it." Athletes who are playing in the zone experience time distortion. Everything seems to slow down. Describing a peak performance, NBA star Reggie Miller said, "It all seemed to happen in slow motion. In Tai Chi, they call it falling through a hole. The awareness of the passage of time completely stops." Others experience size and space distortion. The ball looked like a grapefruit, or the basketball rim was a hula hoop. Athletes in the zone see everything with clarity. They are relaxed. They perform with a quiet mind, with no indecision and no doubts. They can almost anticipate what is going to happen. They are totally absorbed. Golfer Tony Jacklin linked the zone to being in a cocoon. Dave Winfield said, "I'm in my world." Payne Stewart said, "When it all happens, all you see is the ball in the hole." Have you experienced white moments? Can you recall a time when you weren't concerned about the opponent or the outcome and were simply living in the moment and performing at your best? There is no better feeling in sports. Chapter 3. Paralysis by Analysis. Slumps are like a soft bread, easy to get into and hard to get out. Johnny Bench. A full mind is an empty bat. Branch Rickey. Several years ago, the Cubs selected Rick Wilkins in the first round of the draft. The young catcher was labeled a can't-miss prospect. To use sports cliche, his future was all ahead of him, which is where the future should be. While playing for Peoria in the Class A Midwest League, Wilkins began struggling at the plate. Forget hitting a baseball. I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with an oar, the youngster said, voicing his growing frustration after a loss. The next day, I went to Peoria, Illinois, at the Cubs' request, to work with the farm club. That afternoon, I gave an inspired talk to the Chiefs team about mental aspect of performance. The players and coaches really got into it. That night, Wilkins looked like a different player. The kid belted a first inning home run. In the third inning, he doubled. Later, he added a sacrifice fly. "What a difference a day makes," Wilkins said, beaming after the game. "I just saw the ball well and let that bat go." Next morning, the headline in the local newspaper read something like, Cubs shrink helps phenom out of slump." I felt gratified and proud until I spoke with Wilkins the next day. He told me he had missed my talk because of a dental appointment. Sports and roller coaster. It's a series of performance peaks and valleys, ups and downs, twists and turns. If an athlete's best day is a zone experience, then the worst day is one in which he or she is muddled in a slump, a natural cycle of sports. While we associate the word slump with baseball, athletes in all sports experience times when they feel as if they can't do anything right. The University of Tennessee football team once beat Alabama 24-0. It was the first time an Alabama team coached by Bear Bryant had failed to score in 115 games. The Crimson Tide attempted 51 passes, but the Volunteers picked off 8 of them. In the huddle, an Alabama wide receiver who hadn't lost his sense of humor suggested to his quarterback that he try throwing one to a Tennessee linebacker, and I'll see if I can intercept it. Golfer Ian Baker Finch won the 1991 British Open and then went into an extended slump. His game just left him without a note of goodbye. At times, other athletes have felt as helpless and perplexed as the major league rookie who stopped hitting and went to a veteran teammate for advice. The old pro suggested that the youngster switch to a 29-ounce bat. "Will it help?" the kid asked hopefully. "No," the veteran said, "but it'll be lighter carrying back to the dugout." The old joke is that there are many theories on conquering slumps. Unfortunately, not one of them works. Some athletes deal with slumps by denying their existence. After he broke a 0 for 20 drought, Dave Henderson claimed, "I wasn't in a slump. I just wasn't getting any hits." Yogi Berra didn't blame himself when he wasn't hitting. He blamed his bat. If his woes continued, he changed lumber. "I know it sounds silly," Berra said, "but it keeps me from getting down in the dumps. It keeps my confidence up." Billy Williams, a hitting instructor with the Cubs, linked a slump to a traveling illness. A slump starts in your head and winds up in your stomach. You know that eventually will happen, and you begin to worry about it. Then, you're in one, and it makes you sick. Sometimes, slumps can be traced to a physical problem or a mechanical glitch, but oftentimes, the problem is all in the mind. Athletes who begin to struggle start overanalyzing. They hear that monkey Rich Zisk talked about chattering in their head. They start thinking too much. In a Peanuts cartoon, Snoopy commends Woodstock on making a perfect landing on the roof of his doghouse. Then he begins quizzing the tiny yellow bird about aerodynamics. Now, when you take off again, do you push with your feet or do you flap with your wings first? Do you flap your wings and sort of lean into it? Or do you, in the next panel, Woodstock had disappeared, having dropped straight to the ground with a clunk after takeoff. Snoopy put the lesson into words. If you think about it, you can't do it. A former ball player didn't mean to sound funny when he said of a slump he was in. I've been doing my best not to think about it, but trying so hard not to think about it, I can't stop thinking about it. Overthinking often leads to overtrying. When you're in a slump, you start going to the plate trying to get a home run. Major League outfielder Corey Snyder said, "You start pressing instead of just letting things happen. You let all the negatives come floating through your mind." Not long ago, an NBA player came to me during a low point in his career. Nagging injuries had affected his long-range shooting. His field goal percentage dropped dramatically. Media scrutiny added to the pressure and frustration he felt. His answer for combating his slumps had been to work longer and harder in practice. I urged him to relax, rest his body, and get his mind off the game for a couple of days. Get away from basketball. Take his wife and children on a picnic. In an attempt to regain his form, he was digging himself deeper into a hole and needed to put down the shovel. Years ago, when I was a director at St. Luke's Medical Center in Phoenix, I met Carl Kuhl, who was then head of player development with Oakland A's. Kuhl had spent a lifetime in the game as a player, scout, coach, and manager. He shared with me his views about the mental game of baseball, which became the title for a book he co-authored. Kuhl once asked a major league what he would be concentrating on in the game that night. The player was hitting an anemic .226 at the time. "I want to get a couple of hits and drive in a couple of runs," the player said. Kuhl reminded him that a hitter doesn't have control over whether he gets hits or drives in runs. Carl is right. Instead of being outcome oriented, a hitter should concentrate on what he can't control. Focus on having quality at-bats. What is a quality at-bat? It means relaxing, seeing the ball well, and being patient. The difference between a .250 hitter and a .300 hitter is the major leagues is only one hit a week. Jesus. The key to overcoming a slump is finding a difference that will make a difference. Usually this means doing less rather than doing more.